Hello and welcome to those endless mysteries. Today we have a Bigfoot encounter from Wisconsin. This encounter happened in 2018. And here's another sighting that the witnesses wants to stay anonymous and under the radar, which I can't blame them for wanting their names not to get out there. So they were four witnesses for this sighting, two very nice couples in their mid-30s. So we will call the first couple Tom and Wendy, with the other being David and Stacy. So let's start out with David. David says that him and Stacy was going to pick up another couple, and they were all going out for dinner. While planning on going out for drinks afterwards, saying that it was going to be a late dinner, that it was around 7:30 or 7:45 when they picked up Tom and Wendy, that they had went to a nice steakhouse. Now after dinner, David said that they headed to a nightclub to have a few drinks while maybe even doing a little dancing. When suddenly Stacy said that she had forgotten something at the house, which was okay to all of them, for it was a little early to hit the club. So they headed towards David and Stacy's. When coming out of a sharp left-hand turn, David says he saw something big coming out of the wood line on the right-hand side of the road. The first thing that stood out about this creature was that it was on two legs. David thought it might have been a person at first glance. Then as they got closer, David says he could tell he wasn't looking at a man, but a huge hairy creature starting to cross the road in front of them. At this time, Stacy, sitting in the passenger seat, said out loud, "Do y'all see this thing?" With Tom and Wendy sitting in the back seat, saying, "See what?" At that moment, David thinks they leaned forward and saw the creature, with Tom saying, "What the hell is that?" With David replying, "I don't know, but it's huge and hairy." At this time, David was on the brakes. Slowing, he noticed the creature was moving across the road, saying that this animal made it from the right side of the road all the way to the left side in only 3 steps, that the strides had to be at least 6.5 to 8 foot. Very long strides, he said, as the car was slowing even more. David said that they were right beside this creature before it went back into the woodline, bringing the car to a complete stop where the creature went into the woods, saying that he rolled down his window, that he could still hear the creature moving through the underbrush and leaves, as all four of them were just sitting there in the car, looking out into the woods, saying at this time Wendy said, "Was that what I think it was?" When he heard Tom say yes, "I think it was." At this point, David said that he put this creature at around 8 to 8.5 foot tall, while being a brown or reddish brown in color. He also said that it had long arms, way longer than a human would have. Then as he was just sitting there, trying to get his head around what he had just witnessed, Stacy spoke up saying, "Come on, David, get us out of here." Saying that Stacy really looked freaked out about what she had just seen. Then Wendy said, "Yes, go, David, go." As they pulled into their driveway, David says that all four of them wasn't in any hurry to get out of the car. That they all four were talking about what they had just seen. None of them could really believe what they had saw. They never believed in Bigfoot, but David was sure about what he had seen this night. And it was a Bigfoot, he said. Now let's hear from Stacy. What does she remember about this night? Stacy says that after dinner she realized she had left something at the house. So she told David that she needed to stop by the house real quick to get her license. Then as we were going towards our house, she said, when all of a sudden she saw a large animal coming out of the woods. It was on the right side, she said. She said to David Do you see that or something like that anyway? With Tom and Wendy from the back saying, see what? With David hitting the brakes about this time, she thinks, saying that this thing was on two legs, moving fast but looking as if it was just walking. As we were getting closer and closer to the creature, she says she noticed its eyes glowed green, which she said was eye shine, she thought, with it being very wide. She wasn't for sure just how wide this creature was. Then we decided on about 4 foot wide, while being thick as well. Maybe 3 foot, she thought. It wasn't as thick as it was wide. You could see the muscles moving as its arms were swinging back and forth. Now, as far as how many steps it took to clear the road, she wasn't for sure. 2, maybe more, she thought. It had huge strides. The funniest thing she said she noticed about the creature was that it had back. Its ass was really tight and hard, she thought. Bigfoot got back, eh? While the muscles on its back and the way it met up with its butt. Okay, I said, kind of laughing. She looked embarrassed at that moment. Once we came to a complete stop, I think all four of us watched it walk into the woods. She wasn't for sure about the height, but she knew she had never seen a person that tall before. So I told her that David said it was around 8 to 8.5 foot tall. She said that that sounded right to her. She said as they sat there for about a minute or two, that she looked at David and said, let's go, David, stating that she was afraid that the creature might come back, that they all were talking about it all the way to their house. Once they pulled into their driveway, they sit there talking about it even more. So that was a good one. I really liked how she got stuck on Bigfoot's ass for sure. It was just a cool interview with her. Next, I found myself talking with Tom. Now, Tom was more of an outdoorsman. I could tell by the way he talked about the woods. He's hunted before, that's for sure. Tom says that David and Stacy picked him and Wendy up around 7:30 or so, that they went out for dinner and was planning on going to a nightclub afterwards. When David and Stacy told them that they needed to run back to their place real quick, which Tom said was fine with him anyway. It would give his dinner time to settle down before Winnie dragged him out into the dance floor. While sitting in the back, Tom says that Stacy hollered out, what is that? At this time, Tom says he leaned forward and saw a creature. It was just off the right side of the road, stating that it was a huge animal, walking on two legs moving towards the road. While he also said that the creature he saw was very hairy with reddish brown hair. Then he said that the creature walked across the road in 2 to 3 steps, that David brought the car to a stop right next to the creature, saying that he was glued to the side window as the creature walked back into the woods. He said that the creature had to be at least 8 foot tall, maybe bigger, while being 3.5, maybe 4 foot in width, stating that he thought it was 1,000 pound or more animal. Once David and he rolled down the windows, Tom says that they could hear this thing moving through the woods. Saying around this time, Stacy and Wendy really wanted to leave, as they were telling David to go. He says that he was still hearing the creature moving through the woods. Tom says they talked about this creature for about 10 minutes after they had made their way to David and Stacy's driveway. Okay, now that's what Tom reported happened that night. So what about his wife Wendy? What did she see that night? Wendy says that all of them were having a good time out. When they was on their way back to David and Stacy's house, when all of a sudden Stacy screamed out, what is that? At this time, Wendy said she leaned up and looked over Stacy's left shoulder. At this point, Wendy says that she saw the biggest creature she had ever seen in her life. It was on two legs and it was huge, she said. As we got even closer to this thing, I could see that it was hairy and a brownish color, saying that its arms were larger than a human's for sure. She said with the legs being very muscular, its arms were muscular as well, she said. Even though it was very hairy, it wasn't very long hair, she thought. For the most part, it was uniformed and smooth looking to me, she said. Once it started crossing the road, I think it only took around 3 steps for it to be on the other side. She said once the car was stopped and it was on the left side of the car, she says that she was leaning over Tom's lap, just watching this animal as it was making its way back into the woods, with it being out of sight. I heard Stacy tell David to go get out of here. I agreed and asked David to go as well, she said. Once we made it back to David's and Stacy's, we stayed in the car sitting and talking about what we had seen. Not for sure just how long it was before we went inside the house. So wow, it sounds like they saw a Bigfoot that night to me. I just can't see how 4 people can see a creature and give very close descriptions about the creature. I don't think they all sat around and made this story up. And if they did, why then wouldn't they want the story out and put their names to the story? These 4 individuals don't want to have their names out with the story. They said that they didn't want their neighbors knowing about what they had seen that night. They didn't want the ridicule. Now, this event comes from a very good friend of mine, someone I respect and know well. He knows one of the couples very well, and they know he's into all things paranormal like myself. So thank you for the great sighting story, James. So I hope you all have enjoyed this sighting from 2018. Till next time, have a great day and don't forget to hit that like button. Also, hit that subscribe button and notification button so you can keep up with all of our latest videos. And thanks for watching those endless mysteries.